Well, let's start the next chapter of the conference. My name's Samuel Burke. I'm an anchor and reporter for CNN's affiliate networks. In this section of the conference, we're going to be talking about fintech and the relationship between the United Kingdom and emerging Europe. Of course, we'll be talking about Brexit. It's inevitable, but that won't be the entire part of the discussion. We're going to be joined by a few people, the people that you see on your screen right now, and maybe even in a few minutes, Russ Shaw, who's the founder of Global Tech Advocates. We're working on the technology with him. But the people that you already see on your screen, Ludus Canapienes, he's already right there. He's the founder and CEO of Ondato. And then you also see Dan Melenkov. He's the co-founder and CEO of Corfi, which is a payments orchestration platform. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's get right to the discussion. We've actually seen positive numbers for the tech industry in terms of employment and investment. That's very good coming out of really the no financial deal, Brexit deal that we've had in the UK. So given the positive news that's coming in, Ludus, I'd like to start with you. What do you see as the landscape for the relationship, particularly in fintech moving forward, between the UK and emerging Europe?
Hi, Sam. Yeah, pleasure to be here. So, if talking about, let's say, the landscape itself, of course, let's say nothing has changed significantly from the perspective of fintech cooperation between the UK and the rest of Europe. And of course, Brexit is happening quite a long time, and everyone was kind of already familiar with the things happening. For sure, the companies were getting ready of the possible scenarios of the hard Brexit, of the soft Brexit, and all the stuff, and establishing their network, establishing the entities in the rest of Europe, and of course European entities establishing their entities in UK, and that's what basically is happening. But of course, everyone understands that London especially London is the capital of fintech in Europe, and it will remain that. And nothing will change significantly from the day one when the UK, let's say, exited the European Union as such.
Nothing significant at all for your business. Just making sure I'm hearing that correctly. That's quite a statement.
That's quite a statement. And yeah, we can say that.
Okay, Den, same question for you. Brexit has happened now. We know there's no financial deal. Maybe that's coming in the next 6 months. We've heard about a lot of suffering at the banks, but we're not just talking about banks here. We're talking about fintech. So what's it been like for you, somebody who splits their time between continental Europe and the United Kingdom? What is your business experiencing?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Sam. It's a pleasure to be here. So actually, I'm fully agree with the Ludius. That's nothing dramatically happened. So because our business is in digital goods and digital commerce, and we also have interfaces for financial institutions, and we have to adapt to different environments all over the world where our institution clients are located. So at the moment, there is no significant changes, and it was a lot of time to be prepared, and also there are some other changes in European, like introduction of PSD2. It's finally implemented, and 3DS second version, and other things, other technologies applied already. So I'm not sure that there is significant changes. Because it was a lot. We had a lot of time to prepare, and I think I agree that UK will remain the capital, the financial capital. I'm not saying only Europe. It's a big hub, and it's worldwide hub. So it's maybe there is a competition between London and New York, but it's two capitals at the moment, I would say. So.
It's funny, usually when we're talking about immunity right now, we're talking about vaccines, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, but it sounds like there's a certain immunity that tech and fintech has when it comes to Brexit, because my partner works in banking, and let me tell you, it is not the same for the wider banking industry in the UK that's really feeling the pain. So this is positive news for this segment. I'm interested, though, and I know, Ludus, this is something that you're keen to talk about. Where do we stand with GDPR, then, this break from the EU. What does that mean for the UK? And it really has implications outside the UK as well. I don't want to just make this a British-centric conversation, but if you have somebody like the UK that could step out of GDPR, does that pave the way for a lot of countries that just kind of went to it by default because it would be easier to maintain GDPR across continents the way Facebook has? Where do you see GDPR going now?
Yeah, so that's a really good angle, and that's a really good topic to talk about. Yeah, so basically the situation that we have now, so we can say that still, that there's no agreement yet. Maybe it will be coming and all the stuff, but basically some changes will happen. But the question is what will actually happen in the future with some of the major agreements, and like GDPR is a really good topic because now we have some kind of intentions, let's say, that UK maybe to step out of the GDPR agreement, maybe of the other ones, and that could actually create...
Do you want that to happen for your business? Would that make things better for the capitalist in you? Or would that make things less consistent and more difficult bureaucratically?
So you see, so from my angle as the kind of founders in the startup company, so of course every change is an opportunity anyway. Yeah, so it's just a matter of how we will treat that. But any kind of difference, because we make from the differences the benefits. Yeah, so and that's what we do. That's what is good for us. So of course, in general, like for our business, it would be a good opportunity. To adjust our products to the different jurisdictions and different regulations. But in general, this could actually affect the different topic, so that maybe if, let's say, UK would step out of the GDPR, maybe of the other agreements as well on the common infrastructures or common, landscape and legal like wireframes, then it could create a bit of mess in kind of managing, let's say, the data itself, the client's data, and all the stuff, and that could create a bigger, let's say, mess in different jurisdictions from that perspective. So that's where we could see, let's say, a bigger risk and the advantages or disadvantages of some jurisdictions. So that's a bit of, let's say, another topic. So in general, for the business,
do you think the UK will step out of GDPR? Are you planning for that scenario?
So of course we have to plan all these scenarios, so and we have to consider all of these scenarios, and of course we have to, let's say, see how we can prepare our infrastructure for this case. Because you see, to be honest, we are working in not only in the European jurisdiction, we are working in other jurisdictions as well, and they're different anyway. So if Western jurisdictions, let's say, they have the common background and the landscape, but the Eastern ones, like Asia, Southeast Asia, and all the stuff, so they have different ones. So we have those setups, but anyway. Of course, for us, it is important to know as soon as possible and to prepare for those scenarios.
Yeah, well, that's what we were saying about Brexit all of these years, but it sounds like having some extra time actually helped. Okay, Den, same question for you. Ludus gave me the typical startup answer, which I know you're being honest. It's hard for me as a journalist, though, because you see any challenge and you say, okay, a challenge is a challenge. Let's make lemonade out of lemons. So, Den, same thing for you, or do you see it any differently?
Yeah. So at the moment, we spend a lot of time in efforts in order to change some, I would say, legal stuff on our website and internally to with what is related with the GDPR. But take into account that globally there is a trend is, for example, you have to follow California privacy rules as well, and I'm agree that you have to follow different other regulations for privacy and data collection and so on in other jurisdictions. If you would like to, we help online businesses to scale worldwide, so we have to follow different regulation. It's our daily job. So we have to prepare for different scenarios. And I clearly see the trends that globally in developed countries, there are some similar rules to GDPR, or they are developing now. So I think it will be more or less the same in the United States, in Australia, and maybe another jurisdiction, so across the globe. So I think the privacy and data, private data matters a lot, and security measures has to be applied and other things. So I think, so at the moment with GDPR as a UK company, we have to have a representative in the EU. So and some little change with the procedures, but nevertheless, it's not that much at the moment. And
But
if you
but
have,
if the UK steps out of GDPR, will you keep on applying it in the UK, or is it just for consistency, just for ease? Dan.
yeah, you have. Sorry. Yeah. There are not so many changes at the moment. I mean, it's just official Brexit ended January 1st, and there are just slight difference in legislation. I clearly understand that will be not really dramatic shift in legislation in the matter of data privacy and so on. So I think it will be more or less the same in the developed world. So in any case, if you scale globally, if your company will want to be present to expand to new markets, it has to comply with the local laws.
Well, I want to talk more about how we put meat on this bone, about how the UK can support emerging Europe. But one thing that I had always thought in the lead up to Brexit actually happening is that this could actually be very beneficial for emerging Europe. Of course, we know about the positive relationships between governments and private companies. But one thing that's always struck me is you see so many talented engineers from emerging Europe who want to come to the UK. And there's been a lot of ease of visa, or no need for a visa, I should say, for the countries that are part of the EU. So do you see this as an opportunity to not have some of that brain drain in some of the continental EU countries where you operate? Does that affect you at all, Ludus? I mean, maybe it's a way for emerging Europe to retain talent instead of losing talent.
Yeah, Sam. Like now to make it clear, what was happening like last few years, so that lots of the companies were establishing in the emerging Europe their R&D centers and the development centers and all this stuff. Yeah, so that was happening last few years, and that's why, in example, here in Lithuania, we have so many fintech companies and licensed companies during those years. And the companies are coming here for the talent and to have those R&D centers and the development here. So there's no need anymore actually for Eastern European developers and the competence to go to Western Europe, because all the companies are coming here and hiring people here. So and we have really huge use cases here. So like Revolut, an example, they have a big sites here and Scandinavian companies and all this stuff. So, but if talking about UK, we have so many examples that we're solving like two problems at once. So like first one was the licensing itself, yeah, because they want to have a backup license in the mainland Europe. And then they have also the development centers that they're using to hire the talent, and they don't have a need to now to get them to UK in general. So that's what we see last few years.
And maybe working from home because of the pandemic has actually made all of this.
And for sure.
I want to bring in Russ Shaw. He is the founder of Global Tech Advocates, who's just joining us. I don't want to reset the conversation. I'm just going to bring you right in, Russ. I mean, the question really is, all this time, I thought that Brexit could really be great for some of the emerging Europe countries because they won't have that brain drain. But maybe that could be negative for the UK, where you and I are both based. Russ, how do you see this playing out? I mean, basically what we're hearing, because of what we're all doing right now, working from home, maybe it just makes everything that much flatter. But that could be bad news for the UK if people can just keep on doing these UK-based jobs from emerging Europe. Isn't that a loss for the UK?
It's potentially a risk, Sam, and hi, everyone. Yes, it's something that we're monitoring very closely, both in terms of everybody's ability to work from home. And I think even before the pandemic began, we did see some EU nationals based in the UK go back to their home markets, and that's been unfortunate. So I think what we've had to do is really double down and work that much harder. Talent, I think, is the biggest issue that we face in not only the London but the UK tech ecosystem. Just to give everybody an example, since the pandemic hit, we've seen a 36% increase in tech vacancies. So, my message to startups and scale-ups and organizations of all shapes and sizes is we really have to work hard, not only to recruit great talent, and that's really including emerging Europe talent, but also to make sure that we're doing a really good job retaining that level of talent. Because if we don't get that right, this great ecosystem that we've been growing and building in the UK, and I don't know if you've referenced the Tech Nation report that came out 2 days ago. The amount of money going into UK tech is at record levels. The growth in the sector, the number of tech unicorns is really phenomenal, but we really have to focus on the talent equation here. So for me, part of the reason why the London tech ecosystem has been so strong is we have a lot of international talent here, and a good chunk of that talent has come from Central and Eastern Europe, from Ukraine, from the Baltic states, from the Balkans. That's part of the strength of what we're building here. And we need to work that much harder to build the ties between the UK and emerging Europe markets to ensure that that success continues. Yes, we're outside the EU, but we still want to engage with many of these nations across emerging Europe.
I think we're all somewhat country agnostic between the four of us because of the business that we're working in, even though we might want to advocate for the places that we're in. So Dan, I'm interested just to get your perspective then. You can hear what Russ is saying, that there is a bit of a struggle there. The UK is going to have to work that much harder, but could that be a benefit to places like where you're from, where you are right now, to be able to retain talent?
Yeah, talent is always a crucial point, and when you're doing tech, building technologies. For instance, I'm in Ukraine, where we have a development office, and we are very happy to be here, just because you have access to a lot of talented people, and the hiring process is quite smooth. I mean, still there are a lot of new engineers, for instance, Ukraine is in top 3 outsourcing, I would say, nations in IT outsourcing. So after India and China, but it just has a little bit more than 40 million population, and you cannot compare it with China or India and so on. So, but in any case, I think it's a global trend due to pandemic times. We can see the great exodus from Silicon Valley to Texas and other places across the US, and it actually doesn't matter where you are. When it comes to software development, you can be in a remote island and still have a job at Apple or Microsoft. It doesn't matter, actually. So I think it's really cool, and at the same time, I think UK has a unique opportunity is to gather global talent and to be hub for managing people, providing a legal framework, providing a very clear, a very transparent, I would say, relationship between government and the business, and also with treaties all around the world helps a lot. And so a lot. So I think development is one side, but it's not 100% of the business. So it's maybe like 30, 40, 50, depends on the product, but there is a business side. And UK is perfect location for business.
All right, so it's all fairly rosy. I'll say it again, being a tech journalist can be difficult with tech people because you're always looking for the solutions. Don't worry, we'll get over it. So what I'm interested in now that we have the kind of framework, we know what's happening with Brexit, that's out of the way in terms of our understanding of it, not the actual problem, but the way you guys have set the scene. So what can be done now between the UK and emerging Europe? Ludus, where do you see in the short term, not in the long term, what needs to be done right now to foster this relationship? Where can we put meat on this bone? in the short term to bolster both sides, really, Ludus?
Yeah, so maybe a bit getting back to the topic that because Russ really touched a good point. Yeah, so we already feel, let's say that UK is a bit of struggling with the talent. Yeah, so and it is happening now because lots of the companies from the Western Europe and UK especially are already hiring people here in the Baltics, and that's what we feel, because we are used to have, let's say, this a bit of like closed ecosystem, you know, and to get the talent very quickly, what we needed, and all the stuff, and especially the local players, they can build whatever kind of solutions and product they wanted, and now we feel that the demand of the different people, it's really a good point that it's not only about the developers, but legals, compliance offices, whatever. Especially if talking about the fintech, so it is in a high demand, and of course the high demand, especially in the countries like Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, doesn't matter. We are small countries. Of course, has its own impact. And it's not so easy then for us, the local ones, let's say, to get those people. Yeah? So, and that's what we feel on the one hand. But on the other hand, if talking about those like direct relationships and what can be done, so of course there has to be a dialogue, and there has to be a common agreement on some kind of traveling restrictions and all this stuff, and without the possibilities. Of course, it's not a case because of the COVID and still the situation happening, but when the borders will be opened and everything, so of course we will have a need for close relationship, for the easy traveling in between the countries, for the talent movement from the Baltics and to UK and all the stuff. So this still has to happen, and there's now lots of, let's say, unclarity on the things, because really lots of the people, they don't know what are the possibilities. Can they do that? They cannot do that. Can they go for work and in UK and everything, or and even with the not even for the work, even for the education, it is happening the same. So there's lots of unclarity in that field, and it has to be clarified.
So we need to make sure that I'm going to come to you, Russ, for exactly this, because we need to make sure that this is supposed to happen. But look how many years it took to get a Brexit deal. The UK was totally focused on fisheries, which is something like 0.1% of the economy. Finance, which is over 10% of the economy. They didn't manage to get even a pittance of a deal. So of course, Ludus, as a business person, would love for there to be some type of deal like this. But me, as a journalist, I don't see any evidence of this happening. This sounds like wishful thinking. Am I wrong, Russ?
I think you're somewhat right, Samuel, but I think there are some green shoots. First of all, we also have to jump in here. I have to say, one issue that still needs to be resolved between the UK and the EU, which I am frankly very worried about, is the EU-UK data adequacy agreement. We left the European Union. There was an agreement to extend the time frame around cross-border data flows, which will impact many digital and tech businesses, till April. That can then be extended to June. That deal is not completed yet. Yes, the EU is making recommendations that are going, I think, in the right direction, but I can also see some potential disruption coming out of Brussels that could scupper that. So we have to be all hands to the pump to sort that one out. In terms
I just want to pause you right there. Okay, so you see it on the EU side, more importantly, because the EU seemed to be much more organized about Brexit, or at least in the post-Theresa May era, than the UK did. Do you see it on the UK side?
On the data adequacy agreement, absolutely. I've spoken to the policy people behind that. They are working and have been working very hard for the past 18 months to get that over the line. I think they were frustrated that the final agreement didn't have that. They know that there's a perception that the UK was lagging behind, but on the data side, that was not the case. And I would support them on that. Why?
So why wasn't it in the final deal then?
Because it was the EU side that basically said, we're not quite there yet. We need to run this by the EU 27. In mid-November of last year, the extension went into the agreement that basically said, let's move it 6 months out so that we have time to do that, so that the EU can ratify the data adequacy piece of that. This is related to the ECJ rejecting the privacy shield between the US and the EU last year. That unnerved some people. I think we'll get there, but it's something that we have to be mindful of.
When do you think we'll get there?
Sorry?
When do you think we'll get there, Russ? I mean, some type of approximation.
I hope we'll get there by the June deadline, because the amount of disruption for UK tech businesses is going to be significant if we don't. Let me give you a statistic, Samuel. The UK is 3% of global GDP. The UK is 12% of global cross-border data flows, 75% of which are with the EU. There's a lot of incentive to get that one sorted and sorted quickly. So we need to get that one done. I want to come back and talk about talent, which we started on.
Just 1 second, Russ. Ludus, if I can ask you to mute, I think you're picking up Russ a bit, but we'll get you back off mute in a second. Go ahead, Russ.
Okay, sure. Sorry about that. We talked about talent, and Ludus raised that, so I want to respond to that. You know, we've lost freedom of movement. Personally, I'm gutted by that, very saddened that we've lost that, but it's a reality now. There is a lot of focus on the UK government on making sure that the visas that we have are really fit for purpose. So there's a tier 1 global talent visa that I think has been strengthened. My group, well, Tech London Advocates and Global Tech Advocates, we campaigned to get the cap lifted on the tier 2 visa. That's the skilled migrant visa. Only 21,000 allowed each year. As of December of last year, that cap was lifted. And on the tier 4 visa, the student visa, because we want overseas students to come here, about 1.5 years ago, we worked with the government and other organizations to say, we shouldn't be sending students back after 6 months. Let's send them back after 2 years. Some of them will want to stay here. Some of them will set up businesses. And where are they going to trade to? They're going to trade back to the Baltics, to Poland, to Hungary, to Ukraine, to their home markets. We've got to build those cross-border connections. And maybe just one other point, building on Ludus's point. When I look at what's going on, for example, in Lithuania, and I spoke to China Daily about this recently, Lithuania is becoming a very interesting fintech hub, and they're attracting some very interesting UK fintech businesses to go there so that they have access to the EU. I think that's really smart. But what that means is that Lithuania and the UK are going to have a really interesting corridor of travel and commerce and cross-border data flows, because you've got Revolut, which is here, also setting up in Lithuania. Now, that is the type of focus I think we need to have with many emerging Europe markets. And the developers, the talent that sits in emerging Europe can be a big part of that equation. The more we build those connections between the UK and each of the emerging Europe markets, the more successful we will all collectively be. We've got to keep working on the immigration visas. We've got to work on the travel, especially post-pandemic. But I think the seedlings of a bright future between emerging Europe markets and the UK is there. We need to keep nurturing that.
Den, and anybody can unmute whenever they want, so we can jump in. But Den, I want to hear what you think, what needs to be done in the short term. Is it just the same as Russ and Ludus have been talking about, or is there something that you see that needs to be done in the short term to continue bolstering the relationship between the United Kingdom and emerging Europe? What are your business needs, or what would you like to see?
Yeah, I'm absolutely agree with Russ, and visa issues could be, one of the subject. Especially I'm in Ukraine, where we're not part of, which is not part of EU. But recent trade deal between UK and EU, it is very great deal, and at the same time, I mean, it's not the current relations between European state and Ukraine is not equal. I mean, like in different spheres. I'm not going to cover all the issues, but this is a going process. I clearly see that the deal was one of the steps, and a lot. It needs to make a lot in this journey. But nevertheless, clearly we have a lot of talented people, and also we see that. Almost every month we have in the news that this or that big a giant or corporation, a tech giant, opens R&D office or open a development office here in Kiev or other cities. So I think it's the same issue, is that it will for visas for people to travel. There is no problem for UK or a European citizen to travel to Ukraine. And there is no problem to travel to the EU countries because of the agreement. Okay, current settings are different due to pandemic, but nevertheless. But UK is an island, and also you have to apply for visa. I personally having two years business visa to travel to. I can't because there are no flights, but nevertheless, I have a visa to penetrate the UK. So this is like that, and also I think there is. For instance, we keep servers in the EU, so because of data issue. I agree with Russ. Is next big thing, and also we have to comply with a lot of legislation here local, and also we're not only working in the EU countries, we're working globally, so we have to think about the data and so on in different jurisdictions, and also to think about payment legislation. So I think it will be much easier if we'll have just the same, agenda on what we're working, because in this case, we can, it will be much easier to do business.
I want to get, we touched on COVID just a little bit. Ludus, I want to start with you. For me, I mean, I think it really is true that COVID, I hate to say this because I've lost people close to me, but, and Brexit doesn't seem logical to what we're doing here, but it does seem like COVID is the best thing or the best cover that could have happened to anybody who supports Brexit. We've talked about how because people can maybe work from home, and so that's maybe stopped a lot of problems that the UK could have faced. Is COVID going to challenge the relationship between UK and emerging Europe in this sphere in tech? Is it going to be a benefit to countries like where you are right now?
Yeah, so my opinion on that is actually that it is and it will be a benefit actually for the relationship with any relationship in between the countries and cross-border in general. Because now it's way easier to jump into any kind of conversation in any jurisdiction to any country, and the reach out has never been so easy as it is today. So in my opinion, that's the only benefit from all the perspectives, from hiring people, from having the relationship partnerships and all this stuff. Of course, to establish those, like the new ones and all this stuff. So we are missing, let's say, of the events on the shows and everything that we are kind of lacking of those, because the online doesn't work, and then it is like this. But in general, so there's only the benefits for the situations that we have, and especially on this, and it's never been so easy, and it's never been so quick. And what to notice here, maybe others have the other opinion, but what we notice that life is even moving forward more quickly, because of those let's say quick relationship and reach out and everything, and the agreements and everything are really moving forward more quickly than ever.
And Russ, if anybody has any questions for our panelists, we have just about 5 minutes left, so feel free to send them over right in the chat that you see to the right. I just want to know, Russ, silver lining, do you see it as well? I mean, it does feel like I've had a lot more luck on the business side. For me, doing things that are digitally and virtual, it has been a major benefit to me, even as I've suffered the personal close consequences of COVID.
Yeah, I mean, the past year has been very hard for so many of us, whether through personal losses. I know a lot of people who had to close down businesses. The redundancy levels have been very significant, and we can't lose sight of that. But when I look at what's coming ahead, and I think the digital and tech sector has demonstrated resiliency, but I also look at, for example, coming back to the UK government, our Prime Minister said that he's relying on the tech sector to be a significant part of the economic recovery plan for the UK. You saw the Chancellor of the Exchequer announce and introduce recommendations from something called the Khalifa Review to support UK fintechs. You've seen the Hill Review come out wanting to liberalize the London Stock Exchange and making it easier to have IPOs on the London Stock Exchange. And I think as we get through the vaccination process, and I think, look, the UK hasn't colored itself well over the past year, but the good news here is many people are getting vaccinated. And I think we're going to hit a point in a few months where we're going to see a mini economic boom, people going back to work, pent-up demand, people wanting to go out and enjoy themselves a bit more. And I think you're going to see a doubling down of investment in digital and tech, because we educated so many more people who really weren't touching the tech sector on what it can do for them in this very strange period that we've had over the past year. So I think we're going to see an even greater acceleration. And I think the double advantage, thinking about emerging Europe, thinking about the impact of Brexit, is we have not only UK government, but many tech businesses here basically saying, okay, we're outside the European Union. We have to stand on our own 2 feet. We need to engage with the rest of the world and really encourage our businesses in the UK to expand internationally, and for overseas businesses, whether it's from emerging Europe or other parts of the world, to come and expand their businesses to the UK. And Samuel, I have to say, probably in the past 3 to 4 months, I've seen so much collaboration, so many meetings, so much kind of engagement between the private sector and UK government that basically says, we've got to make this happen. And my voice in this has been, we've got a really good tech sector here, but we can't be complacent. We're going to have to work that much harder to really grow our tech sector. And the only way we're going to do that is by having strong commercial relationships internationally. So I think coming out of the pandemic, that's going to give us real impetus. I think have we lost Samuel there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
Dan, why don't I go over to you while hopefully Sam's picture unfreezes. Do you have any thoughts on that as well in terms of COVID and any silver linings?
Yeah, I think it's already finished, so I can continue by my own here. So, yeah, in our business, and just to finalize this, in our businesses in Fintech, we have a lot of two bold trends that are shift from the cash to digital payments, which is obvious, and I'm sure that for you it is as well. And the second thing, there is the blurring of the lines between offline and online commerce. So it's almost no difference. Even in payment technologies now, there is almost no difference. Because you cannot say that if it's POS terminal, but at the same time you can order something and collect in the shop, and you're paying online.
Sorry, Dan, they're saying they're going to close this down now. So thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone. And thanks for a really good discussion. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Okay.
Pleasure to connect. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for all the insights. Right now, we are going to continue the discussion, but before we do, I would like all of you to use those 5 minutes that we have between those sessions to hop on your right-hand side and find the networking area and make use of those 5 minutes to have a chat with other participants of this event. So I need to refer to the conversation that we had. So our survey was saying that on the one hand, we can see that the future relationship between emerging Europe and the UK will depend on London's future position as a financial hub. On the other hand, we heard that so far nothing has really changed. So time will show. In the next session, we're talking about health and life sciences. We're focused on health tech, and I'm going to invite our editor-in-chief, Craig Turp, the editor-in-chief of Emerging Europe, to moderate the session. And he will be joined by experts from C-Lab Ventures, Life and Health Science Metacluster Scan Bold, and the Polish Hospital Federation, and finally, London Tech Advocates again. So stay tuned. We're joining you in the next couple of minutes.